Kiss FM, your station that plays all the hits. He's a mild-mannered Mandarin by day. He has worked in China. He has written 2 albums of Chinese language songs. He's gone viral. He has beaten the brand out of the Irish and British music scene. His music has been described as edgy, life-affirming silliness. Such songs as Self-Doubt, Cheap Hotel, One Question. Ladies and gentlemen, we've been talking about it, and we have my man, Kevin McGeary on. How you doing, Kevin?
Pretty good, Brian. How are you?
I am doing good. First of all, let me apologize because we had such a time trying to get in touch with you, but we really excited about talking to you.
Oh, that's fine. I'm used to dealing with people on the other side of the planet. My target audience.
Oh, that is great. Well, let's go ahead and kick things off. For those that don't know, Kevin, tell us a little bit about yourself and how you got started.
So at university, I did creative writing, and then as I was graduating, the sort of Lehman Brothers was about to collapse, so the job market wasn't that great. Mm-hmm. So my first opportunity was teaching English out in China, and teaching over there is kind of like a dog and pony show, like massive classes, and you just have to be the center of attention all the time. So every spare moment, I would just be kind of reclusive, and I'd teach myself the language. And then my second year in China was a really immersive experience. So it was Hunan province, which is kind of what you Americans would call a flyover state, kind of like probably the equivalent of Arkansas or Oklahoma, somewhere like that. And so the only real kind of entertainment was karaoke. So almost every night I go to karaoke, and I'd immerse myself in Mando pop music, which is mostly pretty terrible. But as a self-study method, I started to write my own song, and it sort of went from there. And gradually I realized that a Caucasian singing in Mandarin would always be seen as a novelty, kind of like a performing monkey. So I thought, since I'm never going to be taken seriously as an artist, I might as well turn this weakness into a strength. So I started being deliberately silly, and that's when I started to build up an audience.
Did you always associate your music with comedy?
Not at all. I was classically trained, so I got so over here in the British Isles, that the highest guitar grade you can get is grade 8, which qualifies you to teach. So I got that in 2004 when I was 20, and there's probably some alternate universe out there where I just, as soon as I graduated, became a guitar teacher and just had a quiet, normal life. But that's not how things worked out. I went to China, but still, there is. If you took the lyrics out of my music, it wouldn't sound comical at all. And it could be played as background music, and only people who are paying attention would be like, "What the heck is this guy?"
Well, I personally think you are an amazing artist. Your talent is vast. You have such a unique talent. Where does your music and your comedy inspiration come from?
Maybe not. I'd say indirectly. Monty Python is a huge influence, but mostly guys who are influenced by Monty Python, because they're sort of like my parents' generation, if they call them the Beatles of comedy. I really like absurdist humor, but also really subtle humor. I think my 2 favorite classic comedy Hollywood movies are from opposite ends of the spectrum. So one of them would be Airplane, where every few seconds you have a gag, and it's just absolutely non-stop laugh out loud gag. But another one of my favorite classic American comedies is The Apartment with Jack Lemmon. You know, the movie where he's climbing up the corporate ladder, so he lets his bosses use his apartment to cheat on their wives. And in that movie, I don't think there's not really any slapstick. There's very few, if any, laugh out loud moments, but it's still a really enjoyable comedy. Because comedy it doesn't have to have you laughing out loud. It can have you grinning from ear to ear or just feeling warm inside. So a pretty huge range, and but I suppose since I use slapstick quite a bit, or quite unsubtle humor, because when you're dealing with people who speak another language, there's not many types of humor that translate all that easily.
Would you describe yourself as a comedian who does music, or a musician that does comedy?
For years, I would say a musician first, and I still say I'm a musician first and a comedian a distant second, because when it comes to music, I have classical qualifications and all that. When it comes to comedy, I'm kind of winging it. I just try a bit of everything and see what works, and when something works, I go with it. But this year, my New Year's resolution was to perform more comedy nights, but comedy nights are kind of brutal. So I attended a gong show. You know what that is?
Mm-hmm.
Just as an audience member.
Right.
I show, and I thought it's the closest thing I've ever seen to a public hanging.
Ooh.
They're like these things. They're brutal. So I didn't agree with the whole thing. So I'll look for different types of comedy night, and I'll gradually start to market myself as a comedian more.
Kevin, you are amazing. I think you're an amazing talent, and just looking at your body of work, it's fascinating. You write fiction as well.
I wrote a book of when I was taking a break from music in my early 30s because I had a corporate job, so I thought I better keep quiet on the musical side for a while. And so I used my free time to write a book of short stories that were set in China. The collection, and one of the stories is titled The Naked Wedding, which is a decent title for a collection, and it was a really, really huge challenge because I was translating Chinese writing professionally at the time, and I decided to take on this new challenge of writing stories. But it's because Shenzhen, China, where the collection is set, it's like the Wild West of the 20th century. It's the 21st century, the Wild West of our time, in that it's pretty lawless, and there's kind of nobody in charge, but it's the epicenter of the world economy. iPhones are made there, Foxconn factories are there, so much important technology is designed there. Huawei is headquartered there, one of the world's most controversial companies, so it's a very interesting place. So by writing fiction about it, I thought I'd try to look at it from another angle, just ordinary, everyday, downtrodden people.
I was talking about your talent and the different, talent that you have and the different way that you express, yourself and your talent. Do you have any favorite projects or any particular maybe songs or things that you have done that you considered your favorite?
Yes, well, the musical comedy is my favorite of all my activities because it brings everything together. Literature, language learning, linguistics, music, of course, performance. Pretty much, it brings all of my interests together. And I think it may or may not be my best song, but I think my most archetypal song that I've ever written is a song called Romance Tonight, which I debuted at my biggest and best ever gig, which was in August 2022. And it brings together everything I've ever done. So it involves murder, it involves romance, love, passion, and it's probably the most hysterical laughter I've ever got from an audience as well at the end. So it's ultimately a comedy song, but it starts off sounding very serious. So I'd say that's my signature piece.
You are a man of many talents.
Every time I put pen to paper to write a new song, I think this could be my last ever song, because I could lose my mojo, or the muse could leave me, or I could break my fingers in an accident or something. So, and that's the approach I take to every single song. I never write anything to be a filler, to fill an album or fill some time during a show.
You are a true artist in every aspect of the definition. So my other question would be, do you prefer or lean more towards recording, or do you prefer performing live? Is there a favorite between the two?
That's an excellent question. I'd say recording's a solitary process. It's kind of stressful because it's anything that involves audio equipment is pretty time consuming, and there's always some minor detail that needs to be ironed out. Performing, but it's the old Dorothy Parker quote. I hate writing. I love having written. I would probably feel the same way about performing, because the day of a performance is super stressful. There are so many. You've got to get to the venue. You've got to go through a sound check. You've got to meet and learn the names of all the staff members that are working on the show, and but to look back on a show after having performed it is probably my favorite aspect of the whole thing, because you can just look back and say, I did that. I went through all that stress organizing the thing and preparing for it, and it went all right in the end. So that's my favorite aspect of it.
Spoken like a true talent. Have you found that social media and the internet has helped you, or has it hindered you in getting your talent out there or expressing yourself?
But I try to. I'm kind of glad I'm not all that famous, because of course the more attention you get, the more negative attention you get, and it can be pretty soul destroying. Because when people give you advice about how to get a bigger audience on social media, I find that I can't bring myself to take most of the advice, because they encourage you to give controversial opinion or to argue with celebrities on Twitter, and I couldn't bring myself to carry on like that, because the online conflict, I think, think is even more unpleasant than an old-fashioned fist fight, in my opinion.
I totally agree with you.
I'm glad those platforms are there to help me find an audience, but I only use them in a limited way. So of course I wouldn't mind achieving fame and fortune, but I'm acutely aware of some of the downsides of it.
Yeah, it's a double-edged sword. On one end, it can further your career, but I wonder now, in the climate that we live in the world view, is it more for clicks and likes as opposed to your talent and getting your message across? I'm just talking about just artists in general.
Well, clicks and likes give you that endorphin rush, but they don't really, they don't keep you warm at night, and there's nothing long-lasting about them. So I try not to focus too much on clicks and likes. I'm looking for something that has a bit more long-term value, because it's all well and good going viral on, say, TikTok, but the next day you still have to get out of bed and go to work. So it doesn't really change anything, because this technology is all still relatively new. I don't think anybody really knows yet what to make of it all.
Right, I agree with you. What are your current and future projects that you are involved in? Do you have anything in the works, or any,
Just more of the same, but even more so, if you know what I mean. So I've been writing comedy skits between songs, and they're going well. I'll make a couple of new ones this year, and I like every spare moment. Every day, if I have a spare couple of hours, I will go to a coffee shop and I'll sit down and I'll jot down ideas, raw ideas, and then gradually things slowly come together, and eventually you have yourself a new song or a new comedy skit or a new stand-up routine.
Wow. I said it before earlier and all during the interview. I think you are what we call a true talent. At the end of the day, what do you want people to take away from your music and your comedy, and for your legacy to be?
Well, music is all about evoking emotion from people. Whether, some music is meant to make you cry, some music is meant to make you feel patriotic, and my music is mostly meant to make people laugh. So that would be to make people laugh, but not cheaply, to also be quite thought-provoking at the same time.
That's great. Is there anybody that you would like to work with that is of stature, maybe an artist that's out there, if you're given the chance? Who would you like to work with?
That's a long list of guys I'd love to work with. I think, I guess my favorite stand-up comedian working today is Bill Burr. I'll tour with him. I think I don't have access to his exact writing process, but I think when he's writing a routine, he starts by thinking, what's the most indefensible thing I could say? How do I say it and make people laugh? I think that's probably the approach he takes. And so he thinks of the most controversial thing, and then he works backwards. How do I say that? How do I get people on my side while I build up to this? A really interesting process. And the Onion, I use the Onion is an important resource for me, because it takes, I don't write about current affairs all that much, but satire, like the Onion, it takes things that everyone's thinking about, everyone's talking about, and it looks at it from a fresh angle. It's not even necessarily about being funny, it's just about having a new take on everything.
What is your most successful song that has gotten the most response? Whether this response has been positive or negative, but it's the one that everybody's like, hey, that got my attention.
That would be, so at the end of 2020, I wrote a song called Hope It Might Be So, which isn't really a comedy song, but it was still under my The Kev persona, and it was, remember right at the beginning of the pandemic, when all those Hollywood celebrities like Gal Gadot got together, and they recorded a version of Imagine by John Lennon, and I thought that was kind of tactless, because the first line of that song is, imagine there's no heaven.
Right.
And they wrote that at a time when so many people were dying in care homes. So Hope It Might Be So is a kind of riposte to that. And then in 2022, I wrote a Chinese language version of that, and that's, up to this point, it's the only time I've ever written a song that went viral, though it went viral in China. So that would be my success to date.
Fascinating.
And of course, China's officially an atheist country, but you can still talk about believing in an afterlife.
I could talk to you for hours on end. I think you are fascinating. I love what you do. We have a lot of people that are interested, and we had played your song before. Take your time and give everyone your, information where they can purchase your music, or they can check out your YouTube, or they can find out about Kevin. Just take your time and just give them all that information, because I want everybody to know.
So guess my online base camp would be YouTube, and my YouTube handle is the Kev Music 84. The Kev Music 84, all one word. On Instagram, I'm the Kev 84. So Kev Kev, the Kev 84. And so my name's Kevin McGeary, and my stuff's all just floating around the internet here and there. But the songs themselves, so far 3 English albums and 2 Chinese albums. If you on all the platforms like Spotify and Amazon and Apple Music, the Kev. If you just type that in, and it should all show up.
Beautiful, absolutely.
Because it's just a shortened form of my name, Kevin.
You know, there's people out there. There's people that listen to you all over the world. You know, there are people that are saying, I like what he's doing. I want to be where he is. I want to do my version of me. And I'm inspired by the Kev. What advice would you give to somebody that wants to, you know, not only do what you're doing, but maybe just even express themselves?
Well, I'd say the most important thing about the creative process, I think, is to enjoy it. So it's not about trying to be someone else. It's not trying to be a hero, because these things kind of just don't work when you're forced them. So I'd say one really good habit to take up is free writing, or similar to keeping a journal. Just when you have a spare hour or two, maybe first thing in the morning, just put pen to paper and write, and just don't even think about what you're writing. And in that time, the things that interest you, the things that you really care about, will appear on the page. And of course, at that stage, it will be unpolished and it will be unschooled, but that's fine. But you have to, whatever it is you're writing about, you have to care deeply about it, and then you will eventually connect with an audience. If you're patient and you're disciplined and you polish your stuff, you will eventually be able to express yourself. But to express yourself, you have to first learn who yourself is. I compare it to being a teenager. And you know, when you're a teenager, you go through various phases of trying on other people's personalities. So you might go through one phase of being a goth, another phase of being a hippie, and another phase of being a jock, and another phase of being a nerd. And that's all just kind of performing a stereotype until eventually you find the right fit for yourself. Because I went through being a serious singer-songwriter, I went through being different categories of comedy singer-songwriter, until I eventually found my voice, my style.
Well, I know you have other commitments and you're getting ready to do your other stuff, but I wanted to say thank you for taking time out to let us talk to you. You are a fascinating and a super talented individual. Like I said before, I could talk to you all day because you are amazing. Just from the fact that even with the classical music, not even mentioning the stuff that you have done now and the projects you have done, but such a wonderful person, wonderful interview, and I considered myself honored to be able to talk to you and just to, even with this short time, to just be able to communicate.
Thanks. It's been my pleasure.
Well, thank you again, and you have a great day, and hopefully we could talk to you again.
Definitely.